I live in America, in a small blue house on Maple Street in Boston. I bought it for $310,000 after years of saving from 2 jobs. I am the kind of woman who keeps receipts in a shoebox and checks the stove twice before leaving. I painted the porch myself on a warm Saturday, rolling the blue on with slow strokes until the wood looked like calm water. The back door used to squeak, so I fixed it with a $6 hinge and a little oil. When the sun hits the front windows in the morning, the rooms glow like they are glad I chose them. This house is my proof that I can stand on my own feet, even when people I love try to push me off balance. My brother, Daniel, has always liked big things. Big plans, big talk, big bills that somehow land in other people's hands. He wanted a luxury wedding in New York, the kind that lives on in photos more than in memory. He called me and said a band alone costs more than a small car, and the flowers needed to climb the walls like a garden in the sky. Then he asked me for $85,000 as a sister's gift. He said it like he was asking for a cup of sugar. I took a long breath and said no. I offered $500 and a handmade cake topper, something simple and from the heart. Silence filled the phone, like the line had dropped into a well. Later, I learned he didn't invite me to the wedding at all. Our mother, Laura, cried when she told me the news. She said families should stick together, but I heard something else under her words: fear of a scene, fear of choosing sides. I love my mother. I also love the woman I am when I say no to things that are not fair. My cousin, Anna, sent me a message that said, "Proud of you." She has 3 kids and knows how money can disappear like a handful of sand. My best friend, Claire, showed up with pizza and a movie, and the box was greasy in our hands. "You're not an ATM," she said, and I laughed even though I wanted to cry. There is a kind of relief that comes after a hard no, a clean space where you can think again. I did not come for money. I worked a morning shift at a cafe and an evening shift at a small bookstore for years. I put away $50 here, $120 there, letting it grow slow and steady. I lived in one room, shared a bath, and patched the knees of my jeans with thread from a $3 kit. The day I signed the papers for the house, I wore a secondhand blazer that still smelled faintly like someone else's perfume. I paid a $20 fee to file the deed and cried in my car when it was done. This is the part where you might think I am cold for saying no to my brother, but I am not cold. I am careful. I know the weight of every dollar that got me to this porch. Weeks after the wedding, Daniel sent a text. "Come to Jacob's birthday in Manhattan on Saturday, 6 p.m. It would mean a lot." Jacob is his friend from college, the kind who remembers everyone's drink order and no one's bad day. The message landed in the middle of a quiet afternoon. I was mending a curtain that had torn near the hem, the needle moving in and out like a heartbeat. I read the text 3 times. I felt a tug in my chest, the old wish for peace, for a table where we all sit and speak softly and forgive. Maybe this was a chance to try again. Maybe we could laugh about things and start fresh. Hope is a small light, but it can fill a whole room if you let it. Still, I have learned to listen to my other voice too. The one that says, check the locks, count your money, ask your questions. I wrote back, "What can I bring?" He said, "Just yourself." That answer made me nervous. No cake, no candles, no list for a gift. I told Claire and she said, "I'll be near my phone the whole time." I charged my battery and took photos of the messages like little shields I could carry in my pocket. I set out my simple black dress and my flat shoes. I ironed the dress on my kitchen table with an old iron I got for $7 at a church sale. I packed tissues, lip balm, and a sandwich I bought for $20 because the deli near the station is proud of its bread. Before I locked up, I walked the rooms of my house the way you walk the halls of a school the night before a test. The bedrooms smelled like clean cotton. The bathroom tiles were bright from a scrub I'd done with a $4 brush. In the living room, the couch sagged a little in the middle where I always sit, and I pressed my palm to that soft place like a goodbye. I checked the bank app on my phone and wrote the balances on a sticky note: savings, emergency fund, and property tax envelope in the top drawer. This is not fear. This is my way of breathing slow in a fast world. Money is not love, but it is safety, and I have had to build my safety piece by piece. I stepped onto the porch, and the air was cool and carried the smell of rain from the harbor. A neighbor waved. I waved back. The streetlights were just starting to blink awake. I thought about how, when I was a girl, I dreamed of taking a ship across the ocean to Europe, walking old streets, and counting my steps in cobblestone squares. I did not know then how much a dream costs in time and work. I still want that trip. I also want a life where my name is not a line item in someone else's plan. The train from Boston to New York is a ribbon of noise and light, and that night it felt like every seat held a small story. A woman in a red coat read a paperback and wiped her eyes now and then. A man in a suit took loud calls about a deal that kept slipping away. I ate my sandwich, wiped the crumbs into the paper, and tucked the paper into my bag, so I would not leave a mess. I looked out the window as town slid by in smudges of brick and neon. My ticket cost $60 for the round trip, and the number sat steady in my mind like a compass. As we crossed into the city, I felt my heart beat faster, not with fear exactly, but with a strange pull of family and the old hope for a better ending. I told myself I would walk in, I would smile, and I would keep my voice calm. I would be the woman who bought a house with hard work and who knows the value of every promise. If peace were there, I would take it with gentle hands. If trouble was there, I would see it for what it was. I did not know yet what waited in that room. I only knew this. My line was clear, and I would not step over it, not even for the boy who used to wear my mittens on snow days and swear he would give them back. The party was in a rented loft near the Hudson, a long room with white walls and big windows that showed the river like a strip of metal. Music played from a small speaker, but the air felt wrong, like a stage set after the actors have gone home. There were no balloons, no cake, no candles, not even a paper plate. In the center stood a long white table with a neat stack of folders and 3 bottles of water. 3 lawyers in dark suits waited beside it, Mr. Bennett, Miss Green, and Mr. Cole. Daniel stood at the head, grinning at me as if I were late to my own surprise. He tossed a set of papers across the table, and they slid until the edge tapped my wrist. "These transfer control of your accounts," he said. "Sign it, or I'll drag you to court." His voice was too loud for a room with only 10 people. I picked up the first page and read. It was a trust with a grand name, but the parts that mattered were simple. He would be the manager. My savings, about $42,000, would move under his hand, and if I sold my house, the funds would pass through him for safekeeping. There was a blank where my initials were meant to go, as if my name were a small door he could walk through. I did not shake. I thought of my house in Boston and the porch I painted blue, the hinge I bought for $6. The first night, I slept there with a deed on the nightstand like a shield. I thought of Claire, who had read the text with me that afternoon and said, "This is not love. This is a plan." She watched me print each message and each voicemail transcript. I slid them into a folder along with a short note in my own hand. Then I took the folder to the precinct and sat on a wooden chair while Officer Lewis read quietly, line by line. He called in Officer Grant, then Officer Miller, then Officer Johnson. They asked me to come to the party, keep calm, and say one simple line when I was ready. I agreed. I am careful, but I am not timid. Back in a loft, Daniel pushed a pen toward me. "Be reasonable," he said. "You owe me." The lawyer stood as if to frame him, 3 shadows set to enlarge one man. Mr. Bennett cleared his throat and spoke about family governance and avoiding conflict. Ms. Green said there was limited time to act. Mr. Cole folded his hands and waited, the way a banker waits for a check to clear. I set the pen down and looked at my brother. His suit was new and sharp. His eyes were the same ones that used to ask for my fries when we were kids. "First," I said, and let my voice sit on the table with the papers, "you need to look back." He turned. 4 police officers stood behind him, steady and quiet. The room shrank to the sound of his breath. Color left his face like the tide pulling back from a flat beach. "This is a misunderstanding," he said, trying to laugh, but the laugh broke on the first note. Officer Lewis stepped forward. "Sir, you're being detained on suspicion of coercion and attempted financial fraud," he said. Officer Grant asked the lawyers to step aside. Officer Miller gathered the loose pages that had fallen to the floor. Officer Johnson asked me if I was all right. I said yes, I was. Ms. Green lifted her hands and asked for a moment to confer. "There is no harm done," she began, but Officer Lewis shook his head. He showed her the printed texts. He read out, "Sign it or I'll ruin you," in the same flat tone he had used at the station. Mr. Bennett tried to talk about civil pathways. "This is not civil," Officer Grant said. "This is a threat." The pen Daniel had pushed toward me rolled to the edge of the table and fell. It landed with a small sound, like a tiny door closing. I let the silence hold for one long breath, and then another. I remembered the papers well enough to see their weak spots. The trust had no notary stamp. The witness lines were blank. The dates were out of order, and the name of my street was misspelled. One page called me the minor beneficiary, which would have been funny in another life. If this was a trap, it was not even a careful one. It was a rush job with a legal cover and a loud voice. But loud voices are how people try to move fear from them into you. I kept mine calm. "I will not sign," I said, though by then no one was asking me to. A few invitees stood near the windows, frozen with their plastic cups. Jacob, the supposed birthday host, stared at the floor like it might tell him what to do. I saw a woman in a red dress step back toward the elevator, as if the wall might open. Somewhere in the hall, an ice machine clicked. I took a sip of water and called Claire. "I'm safe," I told her, keeping my voice low. "They're here," she said. "Good girl," and I laughed in a short, breathy way that reminded me I had a body. My hands were warm. My feet felt firm in my flat shoes. Across the table, the folders waited like dead leaves. The officers asked me to give a brief statement on the spot, nothing more than the outline. I told them about the text that called me to Manhattan, the talk of a birthday, the 3 lawyers, and the threat. I held up my phone, and Officer Johnson photographed the message thread and the call log. Officer Miller took the unsigned trust and slid it into a clear sleeve. "You can finalize the report at the station," he said. "We'll give you the case number tonight." I thanked him. It is a strange thing to be grateful and angry at the same time, but that is what I was, grateful to be seen, angry that I had to prove anything at all. Daniel tried one more push. "She's confused," he said. "She's emotional." He used the old words men use when they want a woman to sit down. I did not sit. "I am clear," I said, and met his eyes. He looked past me at the door like he wanted to run, but the path was closed. Officer Lewis read him his rights. The metal cuffs were quiet, and then not quiet at all. "We'll see about this," Daniel said, but the fight had gone soft at the center. He looked smaller than his suit. When they let him out, the room did not get lighter. It just got honest. The lawyers gathered their bags with slow hands. Ms. Green asked me for a business card, in case we want to avoid court. I told her, "Court is where this belongs." She nodded, like a student who knows the answer and hates it. I picked up my coat, folded it over my arm, and walked to the elevator. On the street, the night air touched my face like cold cloth. I bought a tea from a corner cart for $4, paid with a $10 bill, and kept the change like a small prize. I stood under a streetlight and watched the river. The city hummed in a low, steady way, like it was pretending to be calm for all of us. I thought of my blue porch back in Boston and the small dent in the couch where I always sit. I thought of the savings I built dollar by dollar, and how money is not love, but it is the roof over your head. I called a cab and gave the driver the address of the station, so I could finish the report. As the car moved, I let my head rest against the window and felt the engine carry me forward. My brother had set a trap. He forgot I could set my own plan, too. Tonight, the plan held. The line I drew held. And the door ahead, at last, began to open. The morning of court, I woke before my alarm in my blue house on Maple Street in Boston. The rooms were quiet and square, the kind that let you hear your own breath. I made toast and drank tea that cost $3 from the corner shop. I packed the folder again, texts, call logs, the fake birthday invite, and the notes I wrote in my own hand. Claire met me at South Station with a hug and 2 granola bars. My mother, Laura, called while we waited for the train and told me she loved me. I told her I loved her, too. The round-trip ticket to New York was $60, the same as the night before. I paid it like rent to my own courage. The courthouse in Manhattan looked like a block of white stone with steps that made you feel small. Inside, the halls smelled of paper and coffee. Claire and I took seats behind the rail. Daniel sat at the defense table in a sharp suit that tried to do more work than it could. Mr. Bennett, Ms. Green, and Mr. Cole flanked him, their files stacked high as if height could win a case. The prosecutor was Ms. Rivera, calm, clear, and steady. Judge Whitman took the bench and read the case number in a voice that left no room for tricks. I pressed my hands flat on my knees and kept my back straight. Ms. Rivera began with the simple spine of the story. She put up the text where Daniel wrote, "Sign it or I'll drag you to court," and, "If you don't cooperate, I'll ruin you." She played the voicemail where he talked about taking control of my house and my bank. Then she called Officer Lewis. He told the court how I came to the precinct with a folder, how I asked for help, and how they planned to stand by until I gave a signal. Officer Grant spoke about the papers on the table and the way Daniel threw them at me. Officer Miller described gathering the unsigned trust and the blank witness lines. Officer Johnson said I was calm and clear and that I asked for nothing more than safety. When it was the defense's turn, Mr. Bennett tried to turn on the light in the room. He said it was a family misunderstanding, a plan for governance and stability. He spoke about emotions and holidays and the cost of weddings in America. Ms. Green said there was no real harm because I never signed. Mr. Cole suggested I was overly cautious with money. I watched Daniel's face while they talked. He kept his eyes down as if the wood grain might open and let him go. When Ms. Rivera asked me to testify, I walked to the stand and told the court the truth in short, plain lines. I said why I said no. I said how he set the trap. I said I still loved my family, and I still would not sign. There are rooms where the air shifts when truth sits down. You feel it in your shoulders first, like someone set down a heavy box. Judge Whitman asked a few tight questions about the trust, the missing notary, the misspelled street name, and the false birthday. He looked at the lawyers over his glasses and then back at the screen with the messages. The courtroom was cold, but heat moved in my chest, a slow flame of relief. Claire squeezed my shoulder once, not too hard, like she knew I was holding myself together with small stitches and breath. When the judge spoke at last, he did not waste words. He called the plan a blunt attempt to seize assets by threat. He said the law does not allow a person to move through another person's life like a thief in daylight. He spoke about the harm of coercion, how it works like a hand on the throat. He said the fake birthday was a lure and the 3 lawyers were part of a stage. Then he read the sentence. 7 years. Restitution of court costs. A no-contact order for me, renewed each year unless I choose to end it. The words landed like stones and then like feathers. I did not smile. I did not gloat. I just breathed, steady and slow, the way you do when you put a heavy box down and remember your hands again. Daniel looked up at me for one long second. I saw the boy who wore my mittens and the man who threw papers at me. I nodded once, not yes, not no, just a marker on a map that says you are here. The officers led him out a side door. The lawyers packed their bags with small, careful motions, as if they might break the air. Ms. Rivera gave me a thin smile that said, "Well done, and I'm sorry," both at once. Outside the courtroom, a victim advocate met me with a soft binder and a list of numbers in case I needed help. We talked about freezing my credit. Each bureau would charge a small fee. I marked it in my budget. Safety has a price, but I could pay it. Claire and I walked down the steps into the late light. I bought us 2 hot dogs from a cart for $10, tax included, because I needed something ordinary to hold. The mustard stained my napkin like a bright flag. We said very little because sometimes peace is a quiet meal on a busy street in America. I kept thinking of my porch, the blue paint, the dent in the couch where I always sit, and how each room now held an echo of that white table in the loft. I wanted to keep the house and also to step out of its echoes. Wanting 2 true things at once is its own kind of ache. We took the evening train back to Boston. The car hummed and rocked like a slow song. I counted the dollars in my wallet, $1.48, and the rest in my account on my phone. Numbers can be a kind of prayer when you have built them with care. I wrote in my small notebook, sell or stay. I drew a line down the page and listed the costs and the price on each side. I wrote the word Europe at the bottom and put a square beside it. The square was empty, but it made space in my mind. I watched the station slide by and felt the day drain out of my bones. At home, I unlocked the door and stood for a full minute in the doorway. The house had that clean, closed smell, like pages that have not been turned. I set the folder in a drawer and labeled it with black ink, Court, Whitman, Daniel. I washed my face and made tea and sat on the porch in the dark. A neighbor walked a dog and waved. I waved back. The porch light made a small circle on the steps, the kind of light that does not scare the night, only keeps you company. I thought of my mother and of Anna and of Claire, and how love is not alone and not a trap. It is a hand on your shoulder when you stand up to speak. Before bed, I opened the closet and counted the boxes I could pack in a day. I checked the hinges, the locks, and the windows. I folded the $48 into a neat band and slid it into my wallet. I turned off the last light and let the dark room hold me. The sentence was real. The danger was past. The echo was still here, but softer now, like an old bell across the river. In the quiet, I promised myself this. I would not let fear write the next chapter. I would write it myself, in clear lines and simple words, and it would lead me, step by step, toward the life I choose. I put the house on Maple Street on the market 3 weeks after the sentencing. The blue porch looked brave in the photos, but inside I could still hear that night in New York, like a glass rattling in a cupboard. Offers came faster than I expected. A young couple from America toured twice, measured the living room with a tape that snapped like a tiny whip, and wrote the number down on a yellow sheet for $120,000. At closing, after fees and taxes, my attorney handed me a neat summary that said I would clear about $382,000. I paid off my old $7,500 credit card balance that afternoon and felt something unhook in my chest. I moved $300,000 into a safe account, kept $20,000 in cash for the move, and wrote the rest into a budget that did not leave much to chance. Numbers are not love, but they make a steady floor. Packing was slower than I planned. I wrapped mugs in newspaper and found ticket stubs in the couch cushions. Claire came over with tape and a marker and wrote large labels in her round hand. Kitchen, books, keep close. My mother, Laura, brought a pie and touched every doorframe once, like she was blessing the wood. We did not say Daniel's name. We did not need to. When night fell, I stood in the empty bedroom and thanked the room for holding me. The next morning, I signed the last papers, left the keys on the counter, and walked out backwards so I could see the house until the door closed. I sent a short note to Officer Lewis and Ms. Rivera. Thank you. I will be all right. It felt right to tell the people who stood up for me that I was standing now on my own. Buying the ticket was easy. One way to London. In Europe, $1,100, a window seat near the wing. I put my passport, the court order, and my bank letters into a thin folder that slid flat into my bag. At the airport, the agent asked if I had checked luggage. No, I said, and ran a hand along the carry-on that held my shoes, 2 dresses, a sweater, and the small notebook where I keep the shape of my days. The plane rose through a layer of cloud, and the city fell back like a quilt someone had folded too quickly. I slept in snatches, woke to the glow of the aisle lights, and wrote 3 lines. You did it. Keep going. Breathe. London met me with gray wool clouds and air that smelled like wet stone. I rode a bus to the river and watched the buildings change from glass to brick and back again. A listing I had saved weeks earlier turned into a real door at the edge of a quiet street. The landlord, Mrs. Whitfield, wore a navy coat and a kind frown. It's small, she said. Small is good, I answered. I signed the lease, £1, $800 a month, and handed over a £3,600 deposit that made my hands feel both light and careful. The flat had a narrow kitchen, 1 bright window, and a view of the river that looked like a long thought. I bought a second-hand table for 40 pounds, a kettle for 15 pounds, and a plant with glossy leaves for 12 pounds. The first night, the kettle rattled on the stove, and I drank tea that tasted like the beginning. Starting a life is a list. I opened a local account, chose a phone plan, learned the closest bus stop, and wrote the numbers in my book. Rent 1,800 pounds, utilities around 150 pounds, groceries about 200 pounds if I am smart and cook. Milk was 2 pounds at the corner shop. I found a market where the apples were cheap and bruised in a friendly way. A woman named Grace sold bread and remembered my name the second time I came by. "You've moved from America," she said, as if she could hear the distance in my voice. "Yes," I said, and she nodded like that answer was enough. Work came in its steady way. I left a short CV at 3 bookshops and a museum gift store. The gift store called first. "Can you start on Monday?" the manager, Oliver, asked. I said yes and circled the day in my notebook. The job paid 15 pounds an hour, and I picked up shifts when people were sick or on holiday. I liked unlocking the glass cases and lining up the pencils by their tips. I liked the quiet rush of footsteps when the doors opened and the way a small boy would press his face to a postcard and whisper, "Look." At lunch, I sat on a bench by the river and counted what I had spent, then folded the paper away like a secret I was keeping safe. On Sundays, I walked across bridges and let the wind push my hair back. I learned the corners where the tea shops stay warm and the librarians forgive you for reading too long. I took pictures of door knockers shaped like lions and sent them to Claire with small captions. "This one roars." I called my mother every week and listened to the everyday weather of America, trash day, the neighbor's new dog, the way the maple near our old school still turns the brightest red. Sometimes she cried. Sometimes I did. Every call ended with the same words, steady and simple. "I love you. I'm all right." The no-contact order still sits in a folder, but the paper does not press on me the way it used to. Daniel writes to others, not to me. When I think of him, I see a boy who once shared mittens and a man who forgot that love does not come with a ledger. I do not hate him. Hate is heavy, and I am traveling light. I am not naive either. I know how close I came to losing the money that keeps a roof over my head. That is why I count, why I write, why I still keep a copy of every important page. Some nights, I take the long bus home to make the ride last. Lights slip over the river, and the city hums in a low, even tone. In my flat, I sit at the 40-pound table and open the notebook. I list what I'm grateful for: a key that fits, hot water, a job where people say thank you, and a plant that leans toward the light. I write one sentence for the girl I used to be. "You were right to say no." Then I write a sentence for the woman I am now. "Keep walking." People ask why I left America. I say, because I wanted my story back. I still send photos to Anna and laugh with Claire about small things. I do not say Daniel's name. I make my own tea in the morning, count my own money at night, and save for a future trip I do not have to justify to anyone. If you ever stand in a room where someone throws papers and says, "Sign it or I'll drag you to court," remember this. You can refuse. You can call for help. You can speak in a voice that does not shake and draw a line you will not cross. And if they tell you to look down, make them look back. With luck and with proof, there will be 4 officers behind them and a door behind you that opens to the life you choose, in America, in Europe, wherever your courage points next.